Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng and today we'll be talking about our predictions for the worst champions going into patch 11.23. While there are a ton of buffs and nerfs next patch, it can be pretty hard to actually know what's going to change and what's actually going to stay the same. Sometimes a seemingly huge nerf just really brings a god tier champion down to the S tier, and they're still plenty OP. Other times what seems like a minor 2 base AD reduction can go ahead and cause a champion to drop off the rift. So we're here to steer you away from what we think are going to be the worst champions in each role this patch. We'll be starting things off in the top lane with Volibear. There have been various builds for Volibear that have kept popping up lately and people are trying to make him work. From full tank to glass cannon AP, to something in between with a more bruiserish build, no matter what the flavor of the month is, nothing really seems to make him a pick worth going for. As a full tank, he isn't just that much of a damage threat. He can sort of engage fights, but he's not nearly as good at it as other tank champions like Malphite or Maokai. As full damage, he can shred tanks that you cheese in a brush, but in fights, you get shredded before you can even get off your ultimate. The bruiser build is what really works best at the moment, since it allows you to beat some champions in a side lane, but most of those champions aren't OP meta champions anyway. It's generally just tanks that you're able to manhandle, and even if you can't beat them in 1v1s, they'll just group up and win fights with their team. TLDR, either play Malphite or Camille to get a better version of Volibear, depending on your preferred playstyle. Avoiding these champions on the list is a good starting point to ranking up, but if you're actually serious about climbing, you should check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like Core JJ, Aframu, and XSmithy to really help you understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7, ready to help you become the best. Our coaches are top tier players that have spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are now, and they're ready to share everything that they've learned with you. So stop spinning your wheels on your own and get back on the fast track to higher elo today. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Our second top laner to avoid is Aatrox. He's been behind the other bruisers for the majority of the season, and with the nerf to Conqueror and Goredrinker hitting him pretty hard a couple patches ago, things got even worse for him. Pretty much all of Aatrox's hard counters are the popular meta champions right now. When you try to pick him up, there's a pretty good chance that you're gonna end up against a Camille, Jax, or Fiora. Those champions are already disgusting, so when you give them a free lane, things can get really ugly. Aatrox usually relies on doing well early and then spiking super hard in the mid game where he can usually just carry fights if he has the lead. But since he's currently struggling to secure that early lead, he isn't having that mid game impact, and he definitely isn't winning any 1v1s in his side lane against any of those aforementioned picks. Now let's take a look at the jungle, starting off with Zed. The jungle changes a while back got everybody super hyped. Everybody was talking about how absolutely insane Zed is. Wow, he can clear in 3 minutes? He's gotta be OP, man. Well, I hate to break it to you, but doing things faster isn't always good. Zed gets a train ran on him by pretty much any other jungler when it comes time to a 1v1. As a result, you're basically just playing him to AFK farm while avoiding any interaction with the enemy jungler unless you're able to have your laners carry you in a fight. AFK farm in the jungle doesn't really give you that much of a lead these days. It's a strat that only works well for champions that scale extremely well, like Fiddlesticks, Karthus, or Yi, who will spike no matter what at certain breakpoints. Zed relies on actually being ahead of your opponent, so you can go in and assassinate targets quickly, so just play him in the mid lane and stop wasting everybody's time. The other weaker jungler that we'll be talking about is Rumble. We've had to feature Rumble in this series quite a few times in the past few months, but people just won't stop playing him, so we'll talk about him until they do. At a point, yes, Rumble was arguably the most broken champion in the game, maybe even one of the most broken champions of all time. He was able to be played in literally all 5 roles and could absolutely demolish opponents from level 1 to 18. He was just way overtuned when they gave him that mini rework. Of course, this ended in Riot nerfing him into the ground. His win rate hit the mid-40s in the jungle, but that didn't really stop him from being a popular pick amongst high elo players, so they hit him with a couple more nerfs for good measure. Now he's completely terrible in the jungle. He no longer has a super fast healthy clear, and he can't even come close to taking any early game jungler in a 1v1. Next up for the mid lane, we'll start off with Jayce. Jayce has always been a champion that has a pretty low win rate in both solo lanes, but a lot of that is because of his high skill floor. Even playing Jayce just okay results in him providing basically nothing. He requires perfect play to be useful, but to me, even with perfect play, he's just a really suboptimal mid laner. In the top lane, you can use his range form to bully melee champions in the longer lane, zoning them from XP. You slowly build up a lead, and you can either bully your opponents in the side lane or group up and use your lead to poke hard with Q and E combos around objectives. But in the mid lane, the shorter lane means it's much harder to actually zone out opponents as they're always close to their tower. Plus, it's a lot easier to be ganked mid if you're trying to play aggressively. Another issue is that on this patch, mages are seeing some pretty nice buffs, and Jayce doesn't really do nearly as well against ranged champions as he does against melee ones. What would this list be without seeing Lucian on it? Lucian is quite literally the biggest ego pick of all time. He allows you to hard bully somebody in a 1v1 for the first few levels of the game, but if you don't actually have your jungler permanently playing around you, it's such a bad pick. To be specific, we're talking about Lucian in the mid lane. To actually win lane, Lucian has to go pretty aggressively, constantly dashing in for trades. This obviously leaves you very open to being ganked by the enemy jungler, and once you die as Lucian, the game may as well be over, because once he's behind, he has very little comeback potential on his own, because he offers no utility. There are other bullies who are simply more consistently able to get results, and are still able to be more useful even if you don't have a jungler playing to babysit you 100% of the time. To me, Lucian is by far the most overplayed bad champion in the game, at least as a solo laner. I know stats aren't everything, but when a champion is struggling to get past the mid-40s win rate wise, you know that there are better options. Yet people just can't give up on him for some reason. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What's a champion that you think is both really bad but still overplayed? Let us know your answers down in the comments below. Moving things down to the bot lane, the first champion that we'll be talking about is Varus. This preseason patch is bringing in quite a few interesting things that will shake up certain parts of the meta, but ADCs are basically entirely untouched, like me. I'm sorry I used that joke before, but it still hurts. Well, the ones that can use Lethal Tempo well will be profiting nicely from it, but Varus probably won't be using that, so it's not really going to be helping him. There isn't a lot to say that hasn't been said before. He's awful in solo queue because he is balanced around pro play, and until we see some type of overhaul to his kit that changes how he functions, that likely will not change. Our other bot lane carry that we'll be discussing is Kaisa. This is a bit more of an arguable entry than Varus. While Varus definitely is the worst standard marksman in the bot lane at the moment, the rest of the bad picks aren't exactly awful. They aren't as good as other champions that fill the same niche though. Statistically, you could say that this spot could have gone to Samara since her win rate is so low, but we all know that when a Samara plays well, she can 1v9 a game. So the reason that Kaisa gets a spot is due to the role that she fills. Kaisa is a hyper carry, and when you compare her to other champions in that category, she just doesn't really do the job as well as them. Sure, her E-Evolve gives some good maneuverability in teamfights later, but her damage output just isn't as good as the bigger hyper carries such as Jinx, Cog, and Twitch. But like I said, the difference here isn't that big, and if you really do enjoy playing Kaisa, she's the one champion from this list that you can get away with playing and not being a complete detriment to your team. And who knows, maybe the new Lethal Tempo will work really nicely on her and put her on a higher level. It'll take a little bit of testing to really know for sure, and we haven't really gotten around to it, so if you want to give it a try, come back and let us know down in the comments below. Now, let's talk about our supports. The first one that we'll be looking at is Pantheon. Pantheon support can work, but is very reliant on snowballing hard. That's because Pantheon is a complete kill lane support, and all he really has to offer is a single target catch potential. So if you pair it with Tristana and go ham right from level 2, things can work out. But just like we talked about with Lucian mid, this can quickly go very wrong if the enemy jungler decides to camp you. You're all in all the time, and once you go in, you can't really get out. Once a jungler shows up and counters your engage, you'll instantly become a losing lane. Out of lane, if you're not that ahead, you're basically useless. Compare this to any other support that can go in like Leona or Alistar. Those champions can CC multiple targets at once and have durability to serve as actual frontliners, rather than just being melted in an instant like Pantheon. Finishing off our list, we'll be looking at Galio. At one point, he was in our S tier as a support, but that time is past and gone. At the moment, he's just a free lane for any scaling champion to go against. He's easy for a double range lane to bully, and when he's dealing with other melee supports, he's way weaker in 2v2 all-ins. The one niche that he could sort of fill is counter-engaging and or peeling for carries, but Rel does that approximately 100 times better. So for now, consider Galio off the list for support, and keep him in the mid lane, where he's doing super well. At least until they add Evershroud to the game, which may potentially open things up a bit. That about wraps things up for our worst 10 champions on patch 11.23. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember, let us know what champion you think is bad but still overplayed down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can go ahead and discuss things further or just hang out and be part of our community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.